It is March 4th, 2019. This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I am Glenn Rubenstein. I'm back at my home base, my regular location, joined this week by Raj Giri and Mr. Michael Wiseman. Matt Morgan is traveling on assignment. He will be back on Sunday for our Fastlane coverage. And today we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw, the go-home for Fastlane, the go-home Raw for Fastlane. Although, does it really matter anymore? These are so commingled now. Michael, is the brand split dead in your mind?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we still have the guys on SmackDown, Daniel Bryan, The Miz, Shane McMahon. Like, there's still the characters out there we see every Tuesday night. But this women's matchup, man, I think that's what's really losing it for me. When you talk about having two women from the blue brand competing for the red brand championship, then I think in the women's division, it basically is dead.
Yeah, I feel like it's losing steam by the week. I did like the Rousey heel turn. I think she's more in her element that way. I've been saying it for months that's what she should be, this dominant ass kicker. But Becky, I feel like, is just losing steam, and whatever she gains on Twitter, like throughout the week, they kind of kill her off in these segments. I don't know. I thought this show wasn't that good. And that, last week I had tweeted, I saw it last week. It felt like they were getting that spark back, like they were getting some momentum. They were starting to get some of their mojo back, and it felt like they just lost it this week. It wasn't necessarily a bad show, but it's kind of dull.
Yeah, they lost. I mean, this last week feels like a fluke now when you look back on it. And I was really jazzed by what we saw. And this week just had filler matches and everything else. So, again, what's going to keep me interested as a viewer, and I think you talk about the whole show, nothing here has me hooked to tune in next week. Yes, we have a tease of a few things here and there. But overall, Fastlane on Sunday almost feels overlooked in some ways. Yes, the Shield is coming back. But, yeah, yeah.
How are you going to follow up leukemia in remission? I mean, maybe they could have cured cancer. Maybe they could have, healed the crippled like Jesus used to in his time. Maybe they could have performed some other miracle, some other feat of God.
This Fastlane, man, it's just like having to build to this Fastlane pay-per-view just kind of kills the WrestleMania momentum, right?
Yeah.
I felt like there was more you could have done with Batista. You do that hot angle last week, and I don't know, the Triple H promo, we'll get to it.
Nothing about tonight's show, Raj, though. I think for me, the issue is, Fastlane aside, because agreed, that's a big issue, having a pay-per-view smack dab in the middle of March as you're trying to get to your April pay-per-view of the year, right? But nothing about tonight's show felt sequential and hooked in the way that last week showed it. Every little segment had something that mattered. It was important. It felt surprising. Not every segment was surprising, but a lot of segments were. The ending was surprising. You had your buy the book. Somebody comes out and cuts a promo. These guys do this. We have our 3-on-3 tag match, generic women's mid-card match. None of it. So what does it matter? What am I watching?
I'll be the first podcaster to say it this time. Let's beat the review Sunday. Fastlane feels more like a speed bump on the road to WrestleMania to me.
Oh, there you go. There's your headline.
That's the headline. Print that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A completely unnecessary pay-per-view. Don't understand why we're doing it. It's going to be like another episode of Raw or SmackDown, but longer. So Roman came out tonight, said he wants to get the Shield back together. That was the big headline from that segment. And yeah, Rollins is into it. They were quite cordial, brotherly towards one another, but they got to talk to Ambrose. See what he thinks. Ambrose comes out to a pop. Ambrose gets attacked by Elias, setting up their match for later in the evening. Leaning really heavy into this Dean Ambrose is leaving stuff tonight.
Yeah, this is which might mean he's staying now.
Said it all, called it from day one.
Well, that's the rumor now, is that there was it was on Wrestling Observer Live that apparently Ambrose is more and more leaning towards staying now. I guess with, I don't know, Roman coming back, the creative changes, that he's a little more apt to staying. So the fact that he's but they mention it on TV. Usually they don't do that. So,
Didn't Renee say that at some point tonight that he was going to greener pastures or something along those lines?
Which is funny, because doesn't he live in the desert? I mean,
yeah.
Right. And
it feels like they're playing off of it too much, though, right? You're right. They're leaning into it a little bit too much and making it too real at a certain extent.
Yeah. Which is cool. I like a little reality mixed in as long as it's explained well on TV and you're not trying to be too inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Roman and Seth, Roman, is kind of saying he does want that WWE Universal title at some point. So, yeah.
Yep. So that was the through line through tonight, them hyping up. Is he going to reunite with the Shield? Of course he did later in the show. They're going to have a match Sunday at Fastlane. But before that, we had Finn Balor, Kurt Angle, and Braun Strowman take on Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and Baron Corbin. Why do they put this so early in the show? This is where I would change the channel if I were a casual viewer, right? I mean, these are guys that could all be an interesting one-on-one storylines, but you throw them all together in a match like this. Why is it interesting, aside from that spot Leo took from Braun?
Well, even that, you have this matchup back-to-back with a mostly meaningless mid-Carter women's matchup. So the first hour of Raw at that point was already had me checking out, right? There was nothing interesting about this whole piece. But yeah, the 3-on-3 match, to your point, why aren't these guys involved in singles feuds? Why are they being lumped together? Why is this trio of Bobby Lashley, Baron Corbin? Why are these guys, Leo Rush is out there, Drew McIntyre is being misused? Why are they having this group together kind of be the central point for all of Raw in some weird way? I don't get it.
Well, it would make sense if they did this match after they announced the Shield versus these guys.
Sure.
So these guys get a win. You could build that they're going to be facing the Shield next week. Doing it before, again, they've cooled Braun so much. It's like ridiculous how much they've cooled him off. Finn is like nothing as Intercontinental Champion. I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen when he beat Leo Rush. The first time him and Lashley go to a decision, Lashley pins him clean here. Man, it's just, and then Kurt is nothing. He's back to being nothing again. So I don't know. I hope it's just a 1 week thing to get them a win to build to the Shield, and then they start doing the individual programs for these guys. But I don't know how, there's only so many single spots at WrestleMania. I don't know how many of these guys are going to get one.
But you're leaving money on the table here too, right? So you have a guy like Kurt who should be considered a legend, and he's not being treated special at all. You could hype up such a big match with him against whoever you want to, and you're not doing that. Instead, he's just fodder.
He's nothing, yeah.
He's not money anymore. He feels like, you ever play like 3-on-3 tag in one of the WWE games, and you just have the computer randomly assign you a tag partner? That's what Kurt Angle feels like in these matches. Yeah.
I mean, and it shouldn't be, and it's not his fault. I mean, granted, you could tell he's not moving that well. He's not, he's not a spring chicken, but he's a special attraction. That's how he should be treated. He shouldn't just be jobbed out and just be another guy. Use him sparingly for big feuds. He's got a name. He's a legend in the sport, in the business, and use him properly, and you'll get results if you do. He could be big business if you use him the right way.
Well, I think the guy that most disappoints me from this whole entire scenario that we're losing right now is Drew McIntyre, right? Because, Bobby Lashley, he's a big hulking guy, and that's how he gets over. And Baron Corbin's out there. Why is Drew McIntyre, though, playing second fiddle to Baron Corbin every single week? He comes out standing behind him. Drew McIntyre is your money heel from this group. He should be dominating Raw. He should be a monster out there. He has great mic work, great physique. He can go in the ring, right? Why aren't you spotlighting him? Instead, he's playing second fiddle to Baron Corbin. Nobody gives a crap about Baron Corbin. And just that's the guy to me that you're leaving money on the table by not having him involved in some kind of high-profile feud. Not even one-on-one, but get him out of these six-man heel group things that he's doing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I agree.
Dead horse. Here, I've beaten it. Okay, go on.
It's just, are they all wearing vests? Drew wears a vest. I've seen Bobby in a vest before. Corbin's in a vest. Maybe that could be their thing. Vest for business. That's the statement.
Vest for business. Oh, man.
They need a gimmick if they're going to keep being together. So these three are going to go up against the reunited Shield on Sunday. Wonder who's winning.
Or maybe they job Ambrose out.
You think they'd do that for the Shield reunion?
No, I don't. I think it would be stupid to do that. I think you got to have Roman get the pin there.
You're talking about this being, they're advertising this as the Shield's final reunion, right? That's what they kept saying throughout the show at the end was the Shield's final. Number one, okay, guys, to your point from earlier, Glenn, that was the story throughout the entire show. Does anybody care about the Shield reuniting at this point? Haven't they reunited like 15 times in the last 3 years?
Well, and it's his final reunion because they say Dean could be leaving. If they really wanted to do it, they shouldn't have told us Roman was in remission. Then it would be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
it's their final reunion, guys.
Yeah.
He might not make it. That seems like something Vince would have done 20 years ago.
That's true.
I'm glad they're not doing that.
Yeah. But Dean could interfere, and you set up Dean versus Roman at Mania, possibly, if you are going that route. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing is if you did have someone beat the hell out of Dean, and pin him like a Drew, and that could set up Drew versus Roman at Mania. I mean, you need something big for Roman. There's just, nothing really there right now with how these guys have been built.
Yeah. It's very weird. This was a very weird show to build up a very weird pay-per-view. I'm trying to think of the last pay-per-view that felt this unessential. And a lot of them feel unessential, but this feels the most unessential. So yes, McIntyre, Corbin, and Bobby got the win. And then Natalya versus Ruby Riott. The feud goes on.
Well, they were feuding? Oops, sorry.
Yeah, remember the thing with the sunglasses?
Yeah, sure.
I thought this was settled a while ago.
Well, Natalya got the win. And then, when she's there, trying to celebrate her win on the ramp, oh my God, it's Lacey Evans. She walks out, she walks back.
Let's throw something else out there into the mix, just because we have time to fill. Let's do it. What do you think?
When do you think Lacey
get out there?
actually Raws?
Go.
When do you think Lacey wrestles on TV? I would have thought it would have been Fastlane, but maybe Mania?
I don't think you want to put her first big singles match at Mania because
maybe she wins the women's battle royal. Maybe
they could do that. Yeah, as long as it's not a singles match, as long as it's not Asuka versus Lacey Evans. Like there was a little rumor about that at one point. As long as it's not that, it should be good.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, we are getting Asuka versus Mandy Rose this Sunday at Fastlane.
Yeah, and already Asuka got hurt her neck or her back during a house show tonight while taking one of Mandy's finishers.
Dropped on her head is the phrase I saw on Twitter.
Yeah, what she tweeted says she's fine. It's not a concussion. It's not a concussion or a neck injury. She hit her back, but she's fine. So it was just a quick thing, but she's good to go.
And lots of people have come out and started kind of hating on Mandy Rose. Some of the things I've read said not necessarily Mandy Rose's fault. It was just a freak thing that happened from some people that were there in attendance. So let's not jump to conclusions yet, y'all.
Yeah, I guess Mandy. Yeah, she did some move where she dropped Asuka on her head and neck, and I think she just landed wrong. But it sounds like she's fine. So, yeah.
I think sometimes when these things happen, it's not indicative of the worker. I mean, I think people, as wrestling fans, look at this shit with people thinking Roman's leukemia is a work. Wrestling fans love to think they're experts. Love to sit there and compile. Nia Jax is unsafe. Here's a highlight reel I made for YouTube.
Well, but
there's a little something there.
Nia Jax is unsafe. Anyway, no, but no, I don't know if
it's. she has a bad history.
Yeah,
we'll just put it that way.
Here's what I will say:
worse than others, but freak accidents can happen at any time.
And while I think it's really tough for wrestling fans, we are fans, we don't know who is safe and unsafe. I think the thing that we do have to be guarded against is sometimes WWE does push wrestlers who are a little bit greener than I think they should be.
Sure.
And it does feel I will never forget the WrestleMania in Orlando when Taker and Roman were fighting. In the entire match, I was concerned that Taker was going to hurt himself because of how rough he looked out there. Not a wrestler, but when you watch some guy you're afraid is going to drop himself on his own head, anyway, that's the line there for me.
Yeah. I think that's why we never got Taker versus Braun, because of Roman versus Taker, and they looked at those lifts and were just like, we can't this will not work.
Yep.
Anyhow, so Natalya won, Lacey Evans came out. We'll see what happens there. Backstage, Colin Jost and Michael Shea from SNL tonight in multiple segments.
Ugh.
They're going to be hosts at WrestleMania? Did I hear that right? Do you think
they're going to be guest correspondents at WrestleMania? Good Lord. I like these guys on SNL.
I love them on SNL.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of theirs, but actually Michael J was fine. They were trying to make Colin Jost a heel, I guess, and he was talking about how his favorites were the Bushwhackers and Coco Beware, which I always hated when they do the stuff like that on wrestling programming where back in the day with Bobby Heenan, the on-running joke would be like they'd have someone, everyone would know who Gorilla Monsoon was, but they wouldn't know who Bobby Heenan is. And it's like, well, if you don't know who Bobby Heenan is, that means you don't watch this show. That means you don't watch it at all. And that's kind of what this says. It's like, oh, these celebrities come in, they don't watch the show, and that's probably what celebrities do, is not watch wrestling. So
no announced host yet for WrestleMania weekend. They might be on that week. You think maybe Ronda gets it?
Announced host for
SNL.
Oh,
The night before Mania.
No.
Ronda's no way. Ronda's gonna host this.
They do too much crap now on the weekends of WrestleMania. I mean, they got the Hall of Fame the night before. It's not like 1985 where the whole weekend was open.
So an SNL hosting that is a week-long gig.
And I think they got the host planned out for the rest of the season.
They do not.
They don't?
Well, not announced at least. They're only right now. They've only announced Idris Elba, who's the next host, and that's it.
They had I thought they had someone for the finale. Maybe I'm mistaken, but
pro tip: only watch SNL when John Mulaney is hosting. That's what I've learned. That's
it was good last night.
It was.
He's great.
Michael Che. Here's the only thing about Michael Che and Colin Jost there, right? So I agree. Love these guys on SNL, but it was very obvious they didn't get to write their own material tonight. The reason it works on SNL is because they are genuinely funny guys, and all of the humor was way too on the nose and not nearly self-deprecating or poking fun at the business enough for it to really be good stuff.
Oh, good point. Batista could host SNL. That actually could happen. Infinity War's coming out like 2 weeks after that.
I don't see him as the type of guy they go for. I mean, I could be wrong, but he's not really again, I don't see it.
Out of everyone appearing at WrestleMania that currently has a match announced, he is the most, I think, likely candidate schedule-wise, star-wise. Him, Ronda, maybe Cena.
If they haven't done it since '85, I don't see them doing it now. I mean, The Rock, when they were on, it was weeks before.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Speculation, Raj. That's all we have. You want to spend more time speculating on SNL hosts? You want to talk about the shit that happened tonight on the show? Because I'd rather talk about SNL.
SNL host sounds good.
Yeah, seriously. Triple H came out to answer Batista's challenge about Batista attacking Ric Flair last week at his birthday celebration. Did anyone else like this? I liked this promo a lot. I thought it was different. I thought it was more heartfelt. On Twitter, though, people lit this up. Did not seem to like it.
Here's why. Everybody lit it up because they want Batista to be the good guy here. I think that's what it boils down to. People are upset that Triple H is the good guy, Batista's the bad guy, and so Triple H is probably inevitably going to go over Batista, right? I think the promo work here from both guys, the Batista video was effective, and then Triple H did something, what Triple H does, right? It's his prototypical thing, but it's very intense, very heartfelt, very direct, very well-spoken and enunciated, but still super growly and passionate, right? So, but it made sense, though. It told a story, and I dug it. I dug what he did.
Yeah, I hated that Triple H bringing up Ric Flair's son. I don't like when they bring up real life deaths. It's one thing if you bring up Flair getting sick. Was that last year or 2 years ago? 2 years ago. And overcoming it. It's one thing to use that. I just hate it when they use like his son's passing. And during the promo, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to mention it. They're going to mention it. And if you can make it real without that line, it sounded real enough without it. So it just comes across as low class. You wouldn't do that on a real show. You know what I mean? Like a big network show would not be doing crap like that. So that part kind of took me out of it. I don't like how Stephanie and Triple H flip-flop from being heel to babyface, like within the same show, not even week to week, but like the same show. Back in, when Vince McMahon was such an effective heel against Steve Austin, and he wasn't like on earlier in the show talking about like charities, and then later, as a babyface, and then later he's a despicable heel, and then later he's making a babyface announcement. Pick a lane with these guys, especially if you're trying to get, as much heat as possible. Don't have Triple H be a heel with Becky the week before, and now you're supposed to be all the way behind him against Batista. So I think the fans are going to cheer for Batista by the time it comes around. Batista already seems cool. That promo he cut, I thought was great. That Instagram promo. It reminded me a lot of Jake the Snake Roberts, his old promos, where he's not yelling, he's not screaming, it doesn't sound like scripted. content's not necessarily overly original, but he delivered it great. So I don't know if it's his acting skills now, but I thought Batista was just awesome.
Yeah, I think the big thing you touched on, Raj, is so accurate. WWE is struggling right now with its heel face dynamic. And I can't take these people seriously. Am I supposed to like Stephanie? Am I supposed to not like Stephanie? Is she for Ronda Rousey or against her? Is Rousey good or bad? And it goes back and forth and so on and so forth. And I do feel like they toe that line in such a way that it becomes very confusing as a viewer. I can only imagine how casual viewers feel, right? Or maybe they're better off for it because they don't watch it week in and week out. But it does hurt. I mean, very clearly, Triple H was supposed to be the sympathetic figure from after last week and after tonight. And again, to your point, he was out here 2 weeks ago bashing the fan favorite Ronda Rousey. So I like it. Pick a lane and stick in it. It's the thing WWE is struggling with. But to that point, though, again, focusing on what Triple H did here, and what Batista did here, I think it was effective. I think Batista, it seems like he wants to play the heel, though, right? If Batista's doing this, Batista wants something that's going to challenge him, that's going to, artistically. There was this great article about him last week. He's doing stuff that he finds interesting, and I think maybe Batista is going at this from the perspective of just assumption here, but hey, I want to be the bad guy here to see what I can do with the fans.
No, it's confusing. It's complicated, much like buying tickets online, which brings me to this week's sponsor, SeatGeek. Oh my God, it's so tough. It's so difficult trying to figure out varying levels of reliability, hundreds of sites. It's hard to know who to trust. That's why SeatGeek is the way to go. SeatGeek pulls millions of tickets into one place so you can easily find the seat you want for the price you're willing to pay. There's nothing quite like being at a show, a sporting event, professional wrestling, the theater, comedy. There's nothing like being there in person, and SeatGeek is going to get you closer to the action for a great value. I'm going to Las Vegas this week. I'm going to see UK pop star Robbie Williams in his first American appearance in 20 years. While I'm there in Las Vegas, I want to go to other shows. The wife would like to go see Gwen Stefani. I want to go see Wayne Newton. We don't know how much longer we're going to have Wayne, people. Now is the time, and SeatGeek is going to make all these shows possible for me, and that is because SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever, because SeatGeek searches multiple ticket sites and grades every ticket based on value. So SeatGeek helps you immediately identify the best seats that fit your budget, and when I travel, I like to travel on a budget. I like to look for deals. SeatGeek is awesome for that, and the best part, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Make SeatGeek your go-to ticket source for everything sports, concerts, comedy, theater, professional wrestling, and more. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone. It is awesome. It is so easy to find tickets. Like I said, Wayne Newton, Gwen Stefani, I am getting tickets to those using SeatGeek, and we've got an even better sweetener for this deal. Our listeners can get $10 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code INC today. That's promo code INC for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Again, great tickets, great deals. See exactly where you're going to sit. Figure out if you're getting good value for your money. And most importantly, every purchase is guaranteed. Get that SeatGeek app. Enter the promo code INC. Save $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek, life is an event. They have the tickets. And we thank them for sponsoring the Wrestling Inc. podcast. And I thank them for helping me get to go to these great shows in Las Vegas. It's going to be awesome. So looking forward to it. Rajiv, you've used SeatGeek before.
Yeah, I've said it every week. I've been using it. I use it every time there's an event now. And especially this time of year, all these wrestling events coming up, just a ton of shows coming up, WrestleMania week, NXT, we got Double or Nothing. It's just a busy time of year. So if you haven't tried it, you've heard us talk about it, just try it, and just nothing to lose to just take a look, download the app, try it out. And right off the bat, you get $10 off your first purchase. So it's the perfect time to use it.
Absolutely, man, especially with Double or Nothing, man. And I should have some personal news about StarCast coming up in the coming weeks, which I will be sure to announce here first on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. So what else do we got? Oh, Torrie Wilson going into the Hall of Fame. They announced that tonight.
I mean, why not? I mean, she's
never won a championship, but go ahead, Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but Bobby Heenan never won a championship.
I know.
Right? She's no Bobby Heenan.
Way to go, Raj.
Mr. Fuji. But regardless, she was a memorable character. And her feud with Sable and Dawn Marie, they're memorable for that era.
It's more of a slam on WWE for never giving her a run with the championship, honestly, because she is one of the more memorable divas from that time period.
She was great. She played a role well. She was super over.
Yep.
So for a lot of the characters that they put in the Hall of Fame and a lot of personalities. Remember, not everybody has to be Randy Savage and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. You know, you got just memorable stars, and Torrie Wilson's up there. I mean, she's one of the most memorable women of this from the 2000s on.
What are the rumors you're hearing, Raj? Who else are you hearing for this year?
It's Brutus the Barbecue Beefcake. That's one.
Okay.
You know, the headline. I mean, he didn't draw it, but he was in the main event of the biggest SummerSlam of all time. And Taz is also rumored for the Hall of Fame.
Celebrity Wing? Any early word?
No. I agree with you. I'd like to see Cyndi Lauper. I don't know if they might even. Who knows if they'll even have one if they don't. I'm sure they would induct Cyndi if it worked out. I don't think there's any heat there. I mean, Cyndi guest hosted Raw a while back. So
who inducts her, though? That was a good question I got on Twitter.
That's the big rumor. Sean Waltman was saying that there's talk that they might not have inductors.
Huh.
Yeah, that they just get introduced, because I was at the Hall of Fame ceremony last year and I could not last till the end. I had to leave. I mean, it was rough. I mean, those speeches just go on forever. And when the inductors are spending 20, 30 minutes, it makes for a long night, especially with so much going on, in the city. I remember that night they had Impact versus Lucha Underground, a bunch of other events. So, yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. Or you get 2 minutes to introduce them, not like a real hard cut to, 5 minutes max.
The Hall of Fame has struggled for years because they have these guys who want to get themselves over before they get over the guy they're inducting. And that show, if you go in attendance, it can just become so painful, so painful. So they need to do something, because I think the Hall of Fame is not an interesting show to watch. And I actually tell people, if you're going to WrestleMania weekend, go to another wrestling show that night if you can find one.
ROH Madison Square Gardens that
if you can get into the gate, I should say.
Yeah. Well, tonight we got a gauntlet match: Heavy Machinery versus the B Team versus the Ascension versus Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Now, is this benefiting Heavy Machinery being in a tag team match against these three teams, Michael?
I don't know. They're kind of in a weird position, right? Because they have looked strong from backstage segments, and they're being put over from the fact that they're tough. They're beating up on a bunch of jobbers, essentially, like the jobbers of the tag team division. But I guess it's supposed to make them look strong because, look, they can take out all these teams, even though they are jobbers. So I guess they're looking good, right? But I think the fact that they're being paired with kind of comedy stuff makes it not so good for them. They're basically now the Bushwhackers version 2.
Oh yeah, and Aleister Black and Ricochet are getting a title opportunity.
Glenn, what would Matt say?
Don't get any on you.
And they got a lot on them here. It was like, every tag team that wrestles on main event, we're kind of on, in this segment. So, the more you're with the prelim guys, the more you're seen as a prelim guy. So even though they're beating them, but then again, most of the tag team division is that right now on Raw. So I don't know. You need to get some strong tag teams in there and really rebuild it, because the Revival have been beaten every week. They haven't won on TV since winning the tag team titles. They just don't do a good job of really building up their teams. And they're not doing bad with Aleister Black and Ricochet, but I would argue those guys should be singles.
I think Sunday they're going to win the titles of Fastlane.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. It's so dumb.
I actually don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, I think one of them takes the pin from one of the Revival.
Well, but maybe. We'll why do you think they're keeping them going, though, so long if they're not going to?
Because they have no idea what to do with them. They have no idea what to do with EC3. This is apparent. He wrestled on main event again this week, again to Apollo Crews. So, we've seen Nikki Cross. They have done nothing with her. Lacey Evans just walks to the ring and walks back.
Hey, EC3 was in the back bronzing. Come on now. He got a hot moment there.
Or was he cleaning the mirror? I thought he had like Windex. And so honestly, that's what I thought he was doing, was cleaning the mirror.
My favorite part about that segment was whenever they walked away from him, you could still see him in the background of the rest of that segment as they were doing other stuff. And he literally was just standing there holding the pose as to not distract from the scene. I thought that was perfect.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he wasn't even moving his arms.
He just stood there with the thing, whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he must just be like, God, I wish TNA had stronger finances.
Yeah.
Or go back to NXT. He had a great spot in NXT.
It's not the wrestler's choices, right?
I know.
Yeah. Dean Ambrose versus Elias. Elias came out, did the Elias thing. Dean came out. They had a relatively short match, and Elias picked up the win. After that, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns came out with him as they recovered, and they were all in the ring talking about getting the Shield back together. I mean, screw this match. This match was nothing, highly overshadowed by the fact the Shield is getting together Sunday for Fastlane.
Yeah, as a one-off, I think it's fine. I don't think they should be giving a Roman Reigns singles match right now. So in that sense, it works.
Again, one final time, one final rodeo, the world tour, right? To see these guys go out on top. I do hope it leads to something I hope the Shield, again, I think Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns is the match you go to for Mania. I think it'd be an interesting feud. It would give both guys something to work with. It has some built-in bite. But who knows what they'll do? John Cena could go against Roman Reigns. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they've made Cena look weak. So, again, there's just not that. Who's Cena going to wrestle? There's not those natural ways to go. So they got a lot of work to do. And we're a month away now from WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We're only 6 days away from Fastlane, though. Pay-per-view.
Oh, my God. Can you believe it? The goosebumps. I feel it. It's Fastlane season.
You just move Elimination Chamber forward one more week, so it's kind of in the middle between Rumble and WrestleMania. That's all you need.
You know what's terrible? I'm coming back from Las Vegas to watch Fastlane. I was like, I got to be back by Sunday for Fastlane. Made travel plans considering Fastlane, taking that into account.
Yeah. Fastlane is more something that ruins your Sunday plans.
It's almost like it's more of a roadblock. Am I right?
Oh, good Lord.
That being said, the event should actually be good, though. Like the stuff they have booked so far looks good. Like from action, from action standpoint.
Well, and that's, I think, the thing I feel like we periodically need to say this, Raj. We are not crapping on any of the performers, any of the wrestlers, any of the in-ring action. In-ring action is better than it's ever been, which is why it's remarkable that the WWE creative can make such a boring 3 hours of TV every week.
Well, yeah.
But wrestling isn't everything, right? I mean, great matches are a definite huge component of any wrestling TV show, but the 6-man tag matches can be great, but if they don't mean anything, they don't matter, they don't have buy-in, you watch it and it's like, well, that was some fun fluff. It's like watching...
Wait a second. What was the last 6-man tag match that you were like, oh my God, all-time classic? I have to go online, call my friends, tell them about the 6-man tag.
The Shield versus the Wyatt family.
That was a long time.
They've had a couple here and there.
Versus the Shield. They all involve the Shield pretty much. I can't.
And then they have had some on Raws where people come out of there saying, man, that was a really hot 6-man tag. Like, it ended up being pretty good. Maybe it's normal tag matches. I don't know. But anyway, there have been times, but nobody remembers them in the long term. Now, the Shield versus Wyatt family, Shield versus Evolution were all great. Fantastic.
That was like, Michael, that's before your time on this podcast. Raj, remember when I keep going on about that pre-show match that the Usos had with Breezango that one time, where it's like, that was an amazing pre-show match. Like, really, so good. That could have easily been on the upper part of the card, but it was on the pre-show.
It was the Usos versus New Day, right? The SummerSlam pre-show.
No, that was more hyped. That was, I think, maybe even main card. But I remember the Usos had a throwaway match with Breezango. Can't remember the pay-per-view. It was probably shortly after the brand split. And it was like, for a pre-show match, it was phenomenal. But that's the thing. 6-man tag, it's like, I think it just stinks of we had nothing else going on. With the Shield being a 3-man faction.
That's true.
That being said, I do think this match will be really good. I think everyone in there has the potential to, well... I'll say the Shield, Drew and Lashley have the potential to have a great match. Corbin, I'm sure he can pick his spots to be fine.
Yeah. Oh, Baron Corbin. He looks good. This is much better now than the Lone Wolf vest with the receding hairline and the long hair. I mean, he looks better, and I think he came off his GM stint in better shape, but they've got to, I don't know, they've got to give him a real feud. Stop lumping him in with these other guys. It's not helping anyone.
I think he's the most uninteresting character of the bunch. I think he is pathetically uninteresting. Nothing about him does anything for me. And maybe that's just me personally, but I think Baron Corbin as a character is washed up, and they have booked him terribly over the years. He's weak. Why is he leading a heel faction whenever he got run out of town multiple times in the last 6 months, right? Come on now. Come on.
Yeah. I think Bobby Lashley is more boring, but Bobby has Leo.
Well, Bobby's boring, but he's big, right? So, like, the thing Bobby gets away with is he's a terrible promo, right? But he just goes out.
No, he's not. If you look at his work and impact, he was really good on the mic.
True. He's a terrible WWE promo, maybe.
The scripted stuff he gives him is bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
even though when he was feuding with Roman, he was getting some steam on him, and the stuff his promos then were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But
No Way Jose made an appearance backstage.
Woo.
I know. Take a good look, Heavy Machinery. This is where you're headed. Sasha Banks versus Tamina Snuka.
We called this last week. Well, I'm sure everyone called it last week, but what sense does it make to have? I'm not saying they shouldn't have gone with Bayley beating Nia last week, but they get a title shot after Bayley beats Nia, right? Like, what's the sense in that? They probably either should have had Sasha, Tamina beat Sasha last week, and then you could do the switch, or you have Nia asking for a title shot last week. They say, hey, you got to beat Bayley tonight. She doesn't, and so they don't get a title match. And then tonight they got one last shot, only if Tamina can beat Sasha. And then at least storyline wise, it makes sense why they got a title shot. But again, at this point of the show now, we've seen it have a No Way Jose appearance. There's terrible backstage stuff with Michael Che and Colin Jost. We've seen Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins, Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel. I mean, it's kind of this is WrestleMania season. You know what I mean? And this is what you're getting on the go home show, the go home pay-per-view show, and now a Tamina match. Anyway.
Yep, Tamina won. Pin Sasha Banks, so Bayley and Sasha are retaining Sunday night at Fastlane. Makes sense. Ricochet and Aleister Black versus the Revival.
God, it drives me crazy. I love Ricochet and Aleister Black to death, and the match was very short. It was what it was. But every time I see these guys, they were backstage cutting a promo, and they were interviewing Aleister Black, and he's giving these fiery words of inspiration. I just wanted to just throw up in my mouth a little bit. That's not who Aleister Black is. He's a lone wolf. He is a dark being. He is a badass who crosses his legs in the ring, and you are intimidated by him. And I just don't like this dynamic at all. I think it cheapens him.
I mean, hey, he worships Satan, but he's a good guy.
Right.
Well, some of these scripted promos sound like a fortune cookie, right? I mean, we've talked about this before, where they'll start off like no one talks like this, where they're like, oh well, they say that a man is truly tested. And Aleister Black, he had a similar line, when he started his promo, like.
It's so true. I've never thought about that. They're literally writing fortune cookies every week on Raw.
Yeah, Aleister Black, same thing. And I'm like, that just does not fit him. And being in a tag team, I feel like doesn't fit him. He seems, when I see Aleister Black, just the visual I get is a loner badass, doesn't care what anyone says and does. He marches to the beat of his own drum, and then he cuts these lazy scripted promos that they could write for anyone. Anyway. I think Aleister Black's such a cool character, Ricochet too, and these promos aren't doing them, any good.
So Chad Gable and Bobby Roode interfered with this match, causing a DQ. So yes, Black and Ricochet did not win the Raw Tag Team titles. This is their first loss on the main roster, although by DQ, so not really a loss. And rematch at Fastlane? ? Right? Did they announce that already?
Yeah, I thought so, right? It's a triple threat did they not announce that? That seemed like that's where they were headed. Yeah, guys in the chat, did they announce a triple threat between Roode and Gable and the Revival and Ricochet and Aleister Black?
It's not on Wikipedia yet.
Yeah, it's not on the site either. march really fast with getting that. So
far we have the Usos versus The Miz and Shane McMahon, Daniel Bryan versus Kevin Owens, Bayley and Sasha versus Nia and Tamina, Asuka versus Mandy Rose, The Shield versus Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, and Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch.
So this will probably be announced on Twitter sometime this week, and who knows, maybe it'll be the kickoff match. But yeah. I'm pretty sure that's where they'll go, as a triple threat match for the tag titles.
So the main event segment tonight, the big segment before they went off the air, Stephanie McMahon was going to have Becky signed to face Charlotte for the Raw Women's title Sunday at Fastlane. Ronda came in, reclaimed her title, and man, it's just, we all saw this coming. If Becky beats Charlotte Sunday, Becky gets added to the match at WrestleMania, making it a triple threat between Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte. If Becky loses, it's just Ronda and Charlotte. Becky's going to win. Maybe they'll surprise us in how they turn this. Maybe Ronda interferes. Maybe they tell a really good story with it. This could be the hottest match of Fastlane, but the outcome is ice cold, right? We all know where this is headed.
Yeah, the crowd reaction when she said it could be turned into a triple threat if Becky wins, and the crowd didn't want that, Yeah.
Just start chanting one-on-one.
I thought I heard anyway, they weren't happy with that, and that's your WrestleMania possible main event. And when the fans are lukewarm to that and kind of booing it, it just shows that you're not giving them the match that the fans want. And when people are saying that Charlotte in the match will make it better, Ronda has shown that she can have great matches with enough time and practice. She's had great matches with Nia Jax, and her and Becky. If you leave them to their vices, they could have a great match, and the crowd will be into it, and the heat will be there. You don't need Charlotte, and I'm a big Charlotte fan. We sing her praises all the time, but in this case, I don't think it's the right move, and I just think the fans are already starting to crap on this. This is the heat in that last segment was, it just wasn't there.
And Ronda cut a heel promo at the end, and then proceeded to beat the crap out of Becky Lynch. Now let's talk about this a little bit. So Ronda going heel. If you've been following Twitter the past week, Ronda and Becky have really escalated this. It seemed like tonight and in fact, the Twitter promos, the exchanges they've been having are better than what creative's been doing.
Way better. They should just show those on TV and just leave it at that.
Yeah. So Ronda cut that heel promo. They're saying, okay, now she's just, why is she doing this again? For her, she's not your dancing monkey.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking
the woo back in boo or whatever it was.
Yeah, but screw the woo.
You.
Damn the man.
This whole thing, Raj's point about them booing the possible triple threat match, and I almost feel like the fans aren't just booing the match, they're booing the terrible build we've had to get here. It's so nonsensical and confusing and convoluted, and all we want at the end of the day is to see Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch just fuss and fight and tear at each other until WrestleMania and then tear the house down, right? And if you add Charlotte in there, so be it. But I think what they've done is they've over-explained so much of this that the fans are just exhausted and tired and bored with it because we can't follow. What is it? 1 week Ronda Rousey walks out and the next week she walks back in and reclaims her belt, even though she wasn't. And then the authorities okay with that? Like, oh yeah, sure, just take it back. Then why not? 1 week Becky Lynch is fired or suspended, and then the next week
suspended twice,
right?
In like the last 4 weeks.
And so I think all of this push and pull, stop and start, it's not surprising. It's just tiresome and irksome. And so whenever you go out there and you tell the fans, you two are going to fight, and then they say the stipulation is if Becky Lynch loses, the same Becky Lynch who won the Rumble, if she loses her spot. No, she has to win to gain her spot, right? What none of this makes sense, Charlotte. I just think it's too much, right? And then Ronda Rousey's problem here is she just talks way too damn fast. And I talk fast, so I know, but she just right.
But she has acted before. She was in a Fast and Furious film. She had a supporting role in Entourage the movie, for Christ's sake.
Mile 23 or Mile 22, whatever that movie was. She had a big role in that, or a role in that. And yeah, she's not good at this stuff. I mean, at the promos, is when she has to, you could tell she gets going and is going too fast, and it's not believable. I liked the stuff that she was saying. I thought it all made sense. That she was been. I mean, you can connect to it that she has been working hard to try to impress the fans and become a good wrestler, and they're not appreciating her. So screw it. I'm just going to be the badass. I don't need to wrestle and do moves, and I'll just destroy everyone. It's effective, but her delivery's lacking a little bit, but
got to work on her character, you know. And I say this as a guy. I mean, I have kind of a higher voice, but if I'm in a character, I'm there to be a badass. I'm going to really modulate. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to focus on talking. I'm going to do it. And she just sounded like this was not badass Ronda Rousey. She was just sort of like
whiny.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that. This isn't me saying, oh, a woman is being shrill. It's just saying that she could have sounded really tough, really measured, which I think is important if you're trying to come across as a real threat of a character. And I think, they were short tonight. They had to do that ridiculous interview with Stephanie McMahon after. Ronda could have had those extra 2 minutes to take some pauses, take some beats, take some breaths, and been more menacing.
And you know what? If that's not her forte, if she's not good at wrestling promos,
Paul Heyman's got nothing to do.
You have someone there who could really sell it. And Ronda doesn't have to be like Brock where she doesn't say anything. You give her some lines, you give her, you just don't have her carry a 5-minute promo where she's just, it's just going too fast and it's just ineffective. You're just watching it, just kind of like you're not sucked in.
There's just not been, I feel like, consistent coaching with her either. There's been a couple of times where she has delivered some decent promos, but I think they just let her go sometimes and trust her. But when they do that, we get what we had tonight. Now, when she started whipping ass around the ring,
yes, that was
she
great.
looked a lot more effective. I mean, those punches, I was like cringing because it did not look like she was pulling those punches to the gut against Becky Lynch, right? But this whole, oh, wait, I didn't know you were going to take the belt from me. This is not what I intended. None of that stuff is believable for somebody we're supposed to think is a badass. So when you say, then you fuss the audience, it just all feels very fake and just, oh, get over yourself.
From a storyline perspective, what sense does that make that Ronda demands that Becky get reinstated or else she's going to forfeit the belt, and Stephanie just takes the belt and reinstates her anyway.
And then she kicks crap out of Becky. I mean, the whole thing was just so weird.
It's just a mess, again, 2 suspensions. Oh, the storyline, you could tell it's not something that they came up with. Like, we got to get to WrestleMania here. Here we are in January. Here's what we're going to do to get there. It's like a week to week booking decision. And then they're just going to figure it out the next week. They don't, I'm sure they know that Becky's going to win, obviously, at Fastlane, but I bet you they don't know what they're going to do on Raw the next night.
Speaking of consistency, did anyone else find it weird what Alexa Bliss did this week versus what Alexa Bliss did last week? Like, talk about night and day difference.
Oh, yeah. She was doing something. She was like a baby face.
Out there doing something for Girl Up, and last week,
right.
Like, what we're saying her gimmick is she's horny.
Yeah.
The one thing I do think WWE did capitalize on this week, and I don't want to lose sight of that, which is turning Ronda Rousey heel was the right move, though. And that's the one thing that you're looking at this now at WrestleMania being a triple threat. You've got Charlotte and Ronda. The odds are stacked against Becky, and she has to overcome it. That does tell a more interesting story.
But this was not the world beater heel turn promo. When they go to show a clip from this tomorrow night on SmackDown, that editor is going to have trouble getting a clean audio of saying, I'm not your dancing monkey anymore. I'm doing this for me. Like, they're like, going to be, Ronda, can you come in and re-record this? Maybe just record it on your phone and we can just sort of dub it over, because that was not a memorable all-time heel turn promo. And I think those are super important when you're doing a big character arc like this, especially going into WrestleMania.
And I think they should have ended off with Ronda just kicking the crap out of Becky, not go back to Stephanie's promo. Because again, Stephanie's promo, again, it's so inconsistent with what she's saying. 1 minute she's kicking Becky in the knee and Becky hits her. Now she's, against Ronda. It's just a mess.
The other problem you have too is, right, Ronda Rousey's promo was a mess. So to your point, Glenn, they're not gonna be able to edit around it. But then also the camera work is so messy, nobody can ever tell what's happening in a WWE ring because it's constant zooms and cuts and this and that and movement back and forth to make you sick. Like, there's just some kind of issue they have all around with production right now with some of that stuff.
But to your point, I think that it is a good move that Ronda's the heel in this and Becky's the baby face. Charlotte's extra baggage, but in this feud, she is.
Yeah.
She's an afterthought.
So that was Raw tonight. Do we even need to give it a grade? Do we even need to recap it? If you missed it, just, you'll see clips on SmackDown tomorrow. You'll be fine. Just watch the recaps before Fastlane.
I give it 5 Raws out of 10. There you go.
Wow,
There's your scale.
C- D+. It was a lot of nothing on this show for, considering what they had last week.
It was medium rare.
A lot of filler. Yeah.
Oh man. So Oh, sad news. I feel weird just going into this, but AEW Star Jungle Boy, his father, Luke Perry, super wrestling fan, majorly ingrained with the wrestling community. Luke Perry has passed away at the age of 52 from a stroke. Of course, most people remember him from 90210, more recently from Riverdale. I remember his memorable turn on The Simpsons as Sideshow Luke Perry. And I couldn't, that was one today that I just couldn't believe, where it's just like, okay, here's a guy still in the prime of his career. It seems like having this renaissance, this resurgence, and just having this major medical issue.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really sad. I mean, I was a big 90210 fan growing up.
He's the reason I had sideburns sophomore year.
Yeah. I mean, I was a huge fan of that show. I think I might have even watched it until the end.
Really? All 10 seasons?
I think so. I'm trying to think of, I might have left off like before when Jason Priestley left is when I stopped watching. So yeah, he didn't last the whole show, but, yeah, Luke Perry. I mean, he was, I remember watching 8 Seconds when I was in college. He was a cowboy in that. It was based on a true story.
He was in the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes. Right. Yeah, he was only 52 years old. It's really sad. He had a big stroke last week that he was unable to recover from, and then passed away this morning. So, our condolences go out to Luke Perry's family, friends, and fans.
It's really cool. It's cool to see the outpouring of love for Luke Perry in his career. He's one of those guys I feel like was under the radar for so long, but it's rare that you see somebody who was so beloved by everybody he worked with, and it's so tragic. But just I think it's neat to see the outpouring of love for him at this time of tragedy. So
yeah, one of those guys you never heard a bad word about.
Yep.
Everybody.
He was a huge wrestling fan. Even one of the later seasons of 90210 had a scene where he was watching wrestling, and he was one of the producers of the Ric Flair documentary.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he was at the. So I don't usually get starstruck, but he was at the New Japan show at the Cow Palace last year, and I remember hearing he was there, and I was like, oh man, I kind of want to go. Introduce myself and meet him, and then I just couldn't do it. But yeah, he was at that show. He's been to a lot of shows supporting his son, Jungle Boy. So yeah, just really sad.
No, absolutely. He will definitely be missed. More backstage news on Arn Anderson's firing. Wrestling Inc. had an exclusive today, right, Raj?
Yeah. So the reason why he was fired is that Vince McMahon got word that Arn Anderson had allowed Alicia Fox to compete while she was allegedly intoxicated. Now, it's not known how much, how intoxicated she was, any of that's not known. But that is the reason why Vince ultimately fired him. They had some other issues in the past. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. So,
wow,
it's crazy. That is crazy. If that's the rumor, that's what's true. That's an insane thing to have, especially from a legend like Arn to let that happen. It's something else going on there. It's curious.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not known, how, what he knew, if he didn't think, we just, the details of that aspect between Arn and Alicia are not known as to what he knew and everything. But the word got to Vince, and that led to his release.
And is it true that Alicia Fox is missing?
I don't think so.
Well, that it's unknown if she's in rehab. She hasn't been wrestling live dates the past couple weeks. People don't know where she is.
No, I don't think that's true.
Okay. That's why I ask. You're my source to debunk or to confirm. So kind of crazy, but hey, I mean, for Arn, what timing with AEW and everything going on right now? He certainly has options.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we got before we wrap this up?
I don't know. I think that we pretty much covered it.
Yeah. Fighting with My Family was #1 in the UK this past week.
It was,
have y'all seen that movie?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay.
Really? Huh.
It's hard with kids, man. Like getting a babysitter and everything, it turns into a pricey evening.
Just treat them like my dogs. I crate my dog. Just try with kids. No, it was pretty good, but I just hate the way movies like that kind of crystallize and glaze over the WWE experience sometimes. Like that's they touch on it in the movie some, but it's just a tough business that I think sometimes gets glamorized a little bit more than what it should. What do you think?
Well, you got the wrestler.
Which is the opposite end of the spectrum on the other end. I love that movie, but it is the exact opposite end of the spectrum.
I was nitpicking through a lot of it. It really had me at the beginning, and then halfway through, I was like, but wait, that didn't happen, or how come they're not talking about this? But at the end, I was getting all misty-eyed. Like it had sports movie feels at the end. The stuff with the character arcs that they had throughout it, I thought it was very well done.
Spoiler alert, Raj, she gets risen up to main roster. Sorry.
Let me ask you, is this movie safe to take kids to? Like, 8 and a 10-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, if I was a kid and I saw this, I would think WWE was the coolest thing.
Yep.
Like this will do very well as a gateway, I think, especially for girls and teens watching this.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out at some point.
Because I love sports movies, but like I love the Rocky movies, and I think if you watch like Creed 2, I wouldn't take a kid to that. It's too deep thematically, right?
Yeah,
but this is more like what was that Hugh Jackman robot movie they did a few years ago?
Real Steel.
Yeah, I dug the hell out of it, but it was a much lighter, kid-friendly movie. This felt a lot more that in tone.
Yeah. So the movie right now is right at 15 million as of yesterday. So it'll make money. I don't know how much, but it'll make a profit. It's not going to be a money loser.
Amazing how much they sold this on The Rock and his limited cameos in it. Nitpicking, I hate every time they show the trailer with the scene with The Rock backstage. They have the page going, "That's The Rock," and it's like, yeah, no shit, that's we know. Like for people at home who weren't aware The Rock is in this film, they're really beating you over the head with it.
Yeah.
But it was good. Yeah. I liked it. I think
good cast, killer cast. I mean, you got Nick Frost, you got Lena Headey. I mean, like they're good anchors in that movie to surround everybody else with.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Stephen Merchant. And the director Stephen Merchant actually starred with The Rock in The Tooth Fairy. He was like the Tooth Fairy assistant or boss or whatever, not the main boss, but kind of an underling that has to look over The Rock. And he was the co-founder, co-creator of the Office, the British version, which I love that version. I love that show. So I did have Ricky Gervais.
One major issue with Fighting With My Family, and maybe you can explain this to me, Glenn. Why is it that in every scene where Vince Vaughn, he was wearing these polos with WWE logos, why were the WWE logos so comically large? Like if I wear a polo, it's got like a little logo right here, right? But in every scene, it takes up like half of his chest, right? It's like the entire whatever segment. What's going on?
That was probably the licensing deal. That's how they got the cooperation with WWE. Like we got to get the branding. Put NXT over. Actually, they didn't really put NXT over much at all.
No, it was WWE, but yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wonder what they do next. I mean, so the Hulk Hogan movie is happening, but that's not WWE. There's been talk about the Vince McMahon movie.
Eric Bischoff is one of the producers
of the Hogan movie. Wow.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I mean, and WWE signed that deal. What was it with Netflix? They're doing some direct-to-digital stuff, but that's going to be Family Fare that they're putting out there.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm just waiting for Marine 7, man.
Condemned too, right? They all fought on an island to the death. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
Nobody else watched that movie. Did y'all saw that movie, right?
I saw The Condemned. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the first Marine, but I think the Hogan movie should be interesting. Chris Helmsworth playing Hogan. It's not going to cover a lot of his later years. I think it's probably going to end with, against Andre, or I don't know if it goes up until WCW, but yeah.
Well, if Bischoff's working on it, I mean, you would think something.
Yeah, but if you're looking like a real career high to end on that people are familiar with, I would think it would be that Andre match,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we shall see. Sunday night, we'll be back here, but tomorrow we're going to talk about SmackDown, the go-home SmackDown before Fastlane. Sunday, myself, Matt Morgan, Raj Giri, going to talk all about Fastlane. Maybe we'll be surprised. It could happen. Mr. Michael Wiseman, anything you want to plug before we wrap this up here?
Got nothing, but follow me on Twitter. I'm at the Real Wiseman. Thank you guys. It was a fun show tonight.
Thank you.
This was the fun show, not Raw. Don't confuse what I said there.
Word. Raj, what's coming up on the site?
Man, we got just tons of exclusives coming up. We have like 40 interviews, I feel like, that we've conducted in just like the past week or two. Stuff with Phoenix, Chavo Guerrero, more from our interview with Cody Rhodes, Brian Pillman Jr., David Boy Smith. Got Court Bauer coming up. It's just a ton of stuff. So
awesome.
Keep checking it out. Eddie Edwards today as well. So yeah, you just keep checking it out.
Thank you so much to everyone for watching live. I'm Glenn Rubenstein. You can find me on Twitter at Glenn Rubenstein. Appreciate a follow there. And if you dig the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. 5 stars helps new people discover the show. Until next time, folks, I'm Glenn Rubenstein. We'll see you back here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.